till now when we're live. So hello, and welcome to VUX World. VUX World Live, coming at you live from what was the isolation, inspiration, ideation, innovation, contemplation station. But lockdown is kind of slightly being relaxed over here now. I think we're kind of getting out the other end of it. And Dustin, Paris seems as though things are going fairly smoothly over there.
Yeah, I think so. Things are coming back. We had our largest caseload, I think, this week since the lockdown was opened, but things are getting back to normal.
Right. But Ron, things seem to be going the opposite way over there.
Yes, here in Tel Aviv, we're actually going back to quarantine. Probably will begin, I don't know, mid-September. This is at least the news for now. But the situation is not getting better.
Wow. And lockdown can drive you a little bit stir crazy, can't it? I know that I was dressing up in fancy dress and all kinds of stuff when I was in lockdown. I didn't know what I was putting on, didn't know what I was wearing. Any of that kind of rubbed off on you?
Look, I think I remet my robe. I finally wore my robe for the first time in many times, but then it left like for a full month staying in robe. So he's still waiting for me in my cupboard, and we'll probably meet again. Mid-September.
Yeah, that's it. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But yeah, hopefully we don't get that kind of situation over here. But who knows? It seems to be heading that way. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. We're on Thursday today. Usually we've been doing Fridays. We're mixing it up a little bit. We were doing the rundown on Thursdays. We're now doing the podcast on Thursdays. And we'll see how things go. So if you're tuning in for the first time ever in life, then where have you been for the last 2.5 years? But welcome nevertheless. Quick shout out to Bradley Metrock from This Week in Voice and the Voice First FM podcast network. If you are not subscribed to the This Week in Voice VIP newsletter, I recommend you do so. And I'll put the link if you are on LinkedIn. I'll stick it in the comments. If you're listening on the podcast, it'll be in the show notes, etc. Every day, he's kept it up so far, Dustin, hasn't he? Every day, new newsletter.
Yeah, it's coming through. It's a valuable, fun read. I think we get it in Europe around mid-afternoon. It's a good good mid-afternoon break, or maybe you take it with your tea, Kane. I don't know.
Yeah, afternoon tea, couple of biscuits, cup of tea, read through the news. Yeah, but yeah, we had a good piece in there ourselves, so we give us a shout out the other week, which is cool. So yeah, do check it out if you are interested in keeping up to date on all things voice related. And speaking of all things voice related, we do have a little something for you if you are interested in conversational AI, interested in learning more about it and how it can help your company, and if you are interested in having a free voice strategy assessment, then all you need to do is go to our website, vux.world, and you'll see the big button in the top right-hand corner. Click on that, do the assessment, and it'll come straight through to me and Dustin, who will assess you, assess your organization, your team, your capabilities, your aims, aspirations, previous happenings and ventures into this space. And we'll give you a whole load of personalized recommendations on what you should do to improve it if you've already started, or to get started if you haven't already. So I would recommend that, Dustin. I'm assuming you'd recommend that as well.
Yeah, and you're not lying. It does come straight to us. We have not had some sort of automated robot created assessment. It is us going through those answers one by one and creating that assessment. It's a lot of fun. It's interesting to see where people are starting out, where people are going a little deeper, and it's fun to then have that follow up with people and send that over and see if we can be of any help.
Indeed. And part of people's conversational AI strategy, a part that I think is actually overlooked quite often, is, not conversational AI in general, but certainly when you talk about voice technology, essentially it's an audio first medium. That's the whole kind of thing, is that if you're using a smart speaker that doesn't have a screen, it's just an audio device. It's an interactive audio device. And so what's happened is, and I don't know whether people actually realize this or not, but we've been banging the drum for quite a while about this fact and about the importance of audio. And our guest today knows that inside out. It is Ron Jaworski from Trinity Audio. And Ron, welcome, first of all. Welcome to the podcast. I know we've been lining this up for a long time, so I'm glad to finally have you here, and welcome.
Pleasure being here.
And so yeah, so there's been a whole kind of audio revolution happening over the last Taras has just commented, by the way, you should think about automating the report. Taras, the value is in the personalization. It's in our personal review and our input into your organization.
We're a bespoke Michelin style assessment. We're not a McDonald's assessment.
Exactly. It is personalized, every single one. But enough about us. Ron, tell us about you. So tell us about Trinity Audio and how Trinity Audio is capitalizing on this kind of, I don't know if it's renewed, but it certainly feels as though there's a bit of an audio revolution going on at the moment.
So I couldn't agree more with the phrase audio revolution. This is, I think, one of the exciting time. It's I talk a lot about it with my team and on podcasts and on blog posts and whatnot. This is a big revolution, at least as big as mobile revolution that started 10 years ago, a little bit over 10 years ago. And prior to that was the internet revolution, and now it's the voice and the audio revolution, no doubt about it. And I think that, when we look back, when smartphone came to the table and we looked 5 years after smartphone came and we look back and said, what just happened? It's going to be the same for voice and audio. And our story in the audio revolution basically come from a need. I was reading an article in the lift, got into my car and thought to myself, why I can't listen to an article I just started reading. It was 2017 and started to look for solution. Now, text-to-speech solutions are, I guess around the beginning of the internet, there were text-to-speech solutions, but they weren't any good. And I understand, because I come from publishings and website and advertising and all this landscape, I understand that I need to find a scalable solution. And narrators, the quality is definitely the best, but it's not scalable. So I try to find a solution that will be scalable. And then we started basically working on Trinity Audio, where the reason that we call it Trinity, beside the fact that it's fun to talk about the Holy Trinity when you are a couple of Jewish guys from Israel, is that we believe that you need to bring a value to the three pillars of the internet: the user, the publisher, and the advertiser. One, hence Holy Trinity. And once you got all this checkbox checked, you have a real value to the system. And what we bring to the table is a simple JavaScript that any content creator, any website, any brand can embed on their web page, and then with the click of a button, the client, customer, user can listen instead of reading. This is as simple as that. Now, of course, it's a much more robust solution, but the basic building block is this: listen when you want to listen, and this is what we offer. And going back to the Holy Triangle, so the user has content on the go that he can consume anytime he wants. The publisher has a new way to engage with his users or client or customer, and in many cases also a new revenue stream. If you want to monetize the content, we also enable that. And this is actually one of those rare cases where user experience and revenue comes together. Usually it's the other way around. And the last thing is the advertiser, which always looking to find more way to get their message through audio streaming, especially now digital audio. We are seeing all the reports about the revenue in advertising booming in podcasting and booming in general. Our solution, because we come from 8 years of doing video advertising, so we understand the advertiser needs a lot of data. So our solution also enable the data part for the advertiser. So checkbox all the three boxes, and we are happy, and we get great results. Yesterday, actually, a big Dallas Morning News, which is a big publication, came live, and more are coming, and we're excited about it.
Nice.
And so, Ron, can you walk us through a little bit more what the value of Trinity is? Now, obviously, we've had these accessibility tools for a while that will read what's on the page. Microsoft Edge, I don't know if anyone out there is using it, but I've started using it. It's actually not a bad browser. And they've, as I'm sure you know, Ron, they have the reader mode now, which will actually read out loud too. So where's Trinity coming in? What's the value that you're providing above what is going to be there natively?
So I think there are several additional values. First of all, in many cases, what we are seeing is that those automated browser tools in many cases can't identify exactly the text. And then in many cases, the simple example is that they will read the text, and then prior to a display ad, there is the small advertisement word, and then they'll read advertisement when so first of all, we analyze the text to understand what is the textual part and what is irrelevant, and then we create the audio file. This is one thing. Beside of that, our solution in general is, for the publisher, in the case that you mentioned, the publisher is not a side. The content creator is not a side of the solution. There is the user and the browser, and consume the content. This is it. We basically bring the publisher value by offering them the option to give the user the option to listen to it, recommendation of content. We understand what the user is listening, and we recommend additional content. So you won't listen to one article, you listen to a few. The monetization part, of course. We give all the content creators a CMS where they can manage their content, all the content that we create for them, or all the content they created and want to upload to our CMS. And within our CMS, they can basically, with simple solution, distribute the content, which is super important. If they want, they can pull an RSS feed from our CMS and push it to Spotify or to Google Podcasts, or create their Alexa skill and push the feed over there. So this I would say is the advantages that we are offering the content creator publishers right now. We're actually working on the voice layer, so you will have also a voice communication with the player. And then again, this is also always in mind, the Trinity, what the user gets from it, what the publisher, what the advertiser. So for the user, conversation, speed up, slow down, pause, next, or whatnot. And of course, discovery mode, give me the latest news on within a specific publications. This is one thing. For the publisher, it's a better way to communicate with the user, whether they want to insert a message within the article or have some sort of a voice interaction with the user. And of course, for advertisers, and this is still a niche, but it will definitely be the next level of advertising within the internet, is voice activated ads. Where you can have a discussion with you'll have a Starbucks advertisement telling you to get a coupon, and your Frappuccino latte will wait for you at the counter because you discussed it prior with our player. Or this is one option. Or another thing, just saying skip for an ad, which sound like dream come true when when you listen to Dave for radio. So I think this is the next stage. So definitely we are a B2B2C solution. We are not a B2C solution.
Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. So where would a user interact with this then? So it would be in the browser still, where the widget is. A user would be able to interact with it within that kind of widget on the website. Is that right?
Yes, it's a widget on the website. We're actually now releasing our SDK, so mobile app will also be available. And if we're talking about the voice layering thing, again, enablement of the microphone on your device, and then you can communicate with our player. But basically, the usual integration is, you have the headline of a specific article, then an image, and then our player, and then the article itself.
Mm-hmm. You should talk with Instream if you haven't already. I'm assuming that might be on your radar already.
We are close to talk with Andy and Stas. They're great guys. We until I will release I still want to release my SDK. I have a bit problem working with them, but then once the SDK will be live, then definitely Andy is my first call. Yeah,
definitely, because that's they've had some pretty interesting results of late. I don't know if you've seen the excuse me, the one they did with Cherry Labs relatively recently. Did you see that, Dustin?
No, I didn't see this.
So Instream, it sounds. This is why it's like there would be a harmony with yourself. Is that's essentially all they do is interactive ads, and they ran one with Cherry Labs. And out of all of the people that listened to it, and they didn't give any numbers, I don't think, but 21% of people actually engaged with it. So, engaged as in, oh yeah, go on, tell me a bit more about that, rather than skipping. And so if you think about I don't know how many people skip the adverts in podcasts, but it's quite easy to just fast forward 30 seconds, 15 seconds or whatever, when it's kind of linear. But yeah, 20% of people engaging with an ad. I mean, presumably, Ron, from your side, you're kind of selling to advertisers at the same time as publishers. And so to have those kind of potential numbers to dangle in front of people is quite compelling, isn't it?
It's crazy. It's crazy. Look, what they are doing in the advertising landscape, it's not less than incredible. And you don't see any kind of engagement like that in any other type of advertisement in our landscape, at least from my knowledge. And I'm 10 years in the industry.
We've got a few people commenting. Terry Fisher, Dr. Terry Fisher says, hello, gentlemen. Great to see Ron on here. Shout out to Terry. Dr. T. Gopi has said, what about ACD? And I asked what ACD is. It's automatic call distribution. So Gopi, I think that I know we've been doing a lot of episodes lately on IVR design and conversational AI within IVRs. So I don't know whether that might be related to that, but this one is more predominantly focused on, and what Ron's doing is more predominantly focused on essentially audiofying the web, to use your language, Ron. Taras has asked, what data do you collect? So I know there's no voice component in there currently. Do you collect any user data or anything like that? Or is it purely, the widget kind of takes the text on the website? Like, is any data that you collect at all?
No, so basically all the especially nowadays, when soon any kind of user data would be obsolete in the coming month with the direction Google and Apple is taking. So it's not relevant, I think. But on the other hand, it's definitely actually help us since we control the content, we stream the content, so we understand the contextual relevancy of a specific advertisement to that. So that definitely help. And the section of a specific article that is being consumed by the user. And by the way, if Terry is still here, so that's definitely a great friend, and I quote him a lot. By the way, I think he says one of the, and I will quote him again, even here right now. He said something that is amazing, and every time that I say it, especially for investors, they nod their head and say yes. Like he said that, like, for the first time in 70 years, computers interface is not a keyboard, not a mouse, not a joystick, which is something that is comfortable for the computer. We are moving to voice, which is something that is comfortable to us as human being. And this is, I think, the major part within the audio and voice revolution. We are moving from using accessories to communicate with computers to using our basic way of communication, which is the vocal communication, to computers. And I think this is why it's such a major revolution. And Terry's a great guy, and he's an eye opener.
We've got a standard slide that we use, which is that for the first time ever, computers can actually speak our language rather than us trying to speak their language. There was a clap just then while you were talking, so I'm assuming Terry Fisher's still around, because I'm assuming it might have been him that was clapping just there. But yeah, another question from Michael Nelson. Shout out to Michael. Has asked, when you're working with companies and you're audioifying their content, are you noticing, or are you kind of getting involved with any of the content production? And have you noticed a shift or a change in how publishers are writing content, or should there be a shift and a change in how publishers are writing content in order for it to be more audio friendly?
So it's a great question, and I think that definitely it's preferable to write your content to be audified. And I think, again, we're talking about the revolution, and we are in the starting of the revolution. It will become more and more of the norm when people are writing content to think about how can we audify it, how can we turn and audify it mechanically. And it's important to mention that. And I think so. We are not interfering in the content creation, but we definitely give recommendation on regards to where the most beneficial our solution will be in regard to which kind of content, the length of the content, if there are any kind of specific let's say specific writers that are more relevant. Those are the places that we definitely help, but we don't interfere in the editorial part.
Ron, do you see or do you foresee some specific experiences that are where the audio is crafted for listening? So for example, if you think about, say, the New York Times or Bloomberg, right? Sometimes they have these very interactive web experiences. I wonder if you're already seeing, or you expect to see soon, a situation where they're also creating audio with music, with background noises, with sort of podcastifying this content. Is that something that's going on right now?
So there are actually a few, AI. This is going again and again and again every time we talk about audio. There are some amazing startups that do the most amazing thing. One of them is actually doing an analysis to understand the contextual of a specific article, specific story, or whatnot, to understand if it's and then match the relevant music to the text. So when you modify the content, again, you will have the relevant sound within it. And the sound can be, like general music, I don't know, like classical music or rock music or something like that. But it can also be like, a slam of a door, and then, having a door being slammed and things like that. And I think it's amazing. It's still not there yet, but it's definitely amazing. You can see also, definitely a hot area is all the thing related to summarization, because in many cases you want to consume a lot, especially audio content. You want to get a lot, major events, I don't know, in 5 minutes, consume all the relevant news, and then continue in your way. So summarization, and then turning the summarization into an audio file is definitely an interesting place. And there are a lot of companies doing amazing things in summarization. Again, it's really close to being solved, but it's not solved yet. It's super difficult. So definitely, there are a lot of startups that are doing a lot of cool things with AI and ML and DL and many other towards acronyms. And I think all of them have voice and audio in mind to understand what would be the best experience.
Carol, representing the Voice Lunch team, was the one who was giving us the ovation there. So shout out to Carol. And there is going to be a Voice Lunch UK coming fairly soon. I think I can say that. I don't know if this is under wraps yet, but shout out to John Campbell from Rabbit and Pork for pulling some strings. And I'm going to be involved in it. And there's a couple of other people who are going to be involved in it. So there's going to be a Voice Lunch in the UK happening fairly soon. So look out for that. But I want to just jump back to what you said just there, which is, so am I understanding this right, that there are companies out there that are producing audio based on the text in an article, but then recognizing some of the language used in the article to trigger audio samples based on the language? So, for example, if someone says, and there was riots in the street in the article, they potentially will pull out riot sounds and play that in the background. Is that what you're explaining, or have I took that
So
the
it's
wrong
more
way?
like, I don't know, it would be like, if it's like more like, I don't know, the background sound would be like something which is more like, news like, or something which is more like, I don't know, like an action movie soundtrack in the background, because you can, with not many notes, you can create an environment. Okay.
Yeah.
And taking, the voice or the audio file and adding, really, it's more like a fluff. It's not like really like music in the background of a movie, but with some notes you can really give more of a feeling to a specific audio file, and they understand based on the textual of the textual side of the article, which kind of music would be relevant. I don't know, maybe music is not the right word to use, but like the right note, or the right let's call it like, again, the best example is like, when I say like when it's a joke, so I don't know, put like, I don't know, the drums at the end, it's the Ganesh or something. So those kind of thing, and they're trying to do that. It's not there yet, but I think the idea itself, it's amazing. There are you see it also like with translation of animation movie. How do you translate it using AI with mechanical voices and give it the right feel that you have, when you say something which is scary, or something which is funny, or something that is, like I don't know, talk about
Mm.
any kind of other emotion. And you know, those startups will, at the end of the day, whether them or somebody else, will find a way to make it. And it's, you know, it's the next layer of what actually we are doing right now.
Interesting. Wendy Cooper has commented, sound design to enhance the experience. That's kind of what it is. That's kind of what it is, isn't it? It's using sound design to create more of an audible experience. But if you could use the AI to create that soundscape based on the content, and also add like what in the movies would be called foley, which is basically like sound effects in the background based on what's actually being said, that would be unbelievable. You know, if someone says there's a door shut and then there's a sound of a door closing, and then there was I went to a football game and this is what, and the sound of a crowd cheering in the background, all done on the fly using the sound library behind the scenes. Wow, that would just, that's kind of what we're trying to evangelize for on the kind of like voice user interface design side of things, is to use audio to your advantage. But Dustin, that would pretty much make that redundant if it was all just done on the fly with AI.
Possibly. I wonder though the ethics of it. The journalism is a bit of an old school, in some ways ethical driven industry. So I wonder if pulling in sounds that are related but aren't actually the, you know, Ron, you were talking about someone attended a riot, right? And you heard riot sounds. That's not the riot sounds. I wonder if there's any ethical considerations there. But that is interesting, whether it is through AI. Which is the dream of everything, isn't it? Or if it's just the tooling that someone like Trinity is going to give for these better experiences. Because Kane, I know in the notes when we were preparing, one of the things that you brought up is the fact that there has been some research to show that people don't like listening to synthetic voices for a long time, or they get a little tired, or it's not the same as listening to human. And so, Ron, is there anything that Trinity does? Is there anything that people can do when bringing content to audio to make that a little bit easier to swallow, a little bit enjoyable over a longer period of time?
So we did a few researches internally to understand what is the what users, what clients, what customers think about mechanical voices. And one of the things that we did is we created 8 or 10 different voices, and we spread it throughout, I don't know, a group of 30, 40 people. But we didn't tell them it's mechanical voices. And we asked them to say whether it's a mechanical voice or a human voice. And in many cases, the mechanical voice was actually marked as human. People tell, no, it's a human voice, it's not mechanical. So what we found out that in many cases, when you know it's a mechanical voice, you are biased. Okay, you are trying to find out where the machine got it wrong, where is it not okay. Now, I would say that, again, mechanical voice is not good as narrator. Probably in many cases, it will, I don't know, I want to say never will be, but, you know, maybe with all the things that I'm seeing around me, maybe I'm mistaken as well. But there are two things that are happening at the same time that definitely, you know, the gap between narrators and AI voices would be almost obsolete. But one of them is when I think about where text-to-speech solutions were 2 years ago and where they are right now, and I think, so what will happen in a year from now or 2 years from now, and I'm basically can't even imagine what it will be. So, but it definitely will be much, much better. And another thing which is super important, we are listening to more and more mechanical voices. We are talking with personal assistants like Google or Alexa. We are talking with machine in general all the time. And our ear is becoming more and more tolerant to mechanical voices. Our kids won't be as sensitive as us to mechanical voices. And basically those two directions, those two lines are coming in together. So my guess is in the near future, the gap will be almost obsolete. So this is at least my opinion about it. And you know, we can meet again in a couple of years and talk about it. And my guess, it's not like 10 years from now, 20 years from now. I'm talking like a few years from now. This is where we are. And again, those are my thoughts.
So a lot of the kind of technology over the last sort of, you know, all of the time that it took from like the 30s and the 50s when Audrey and the shoebox and all that kind of stuff was around producing synthetic speech and stuff, that sounded terrible. and it took quite a long time for it to get to where it is, which, during the kind of 90s when you had the IVR kind of systems and stuff like that, and some of that sounded a little bit ropey. But then obviously now that there's voice assistants, things have started to sound better. And Amazon has put a lot of effort, and Google has as well, like the newsreader voice and all that kind of stuff. Excuse me. Excuse me. I think I'm just, I don't know. I had a corona test yesterday, by the way. It's negative, so it's not that. But I'm interested. It sounds as though you still think that, or correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds as though you feel as though there are still relatively big leaps to be made in synthetic voices, as opposed to smaller kind of incremental improvements. Do you feel as though that's the case? Is that we'll see some big leaps forward, or do you think it will just be lots of constant incremental improvements over time?
I think it's definitely in the 1% improvement all the time, improving 1% and then another 1% and then and more and more and more. And from time to time there will be a leap. But when you think about it, there is one thing about having a mechanical voice which sounds more humane. But then let's take it one step further. Let's talk about you have an article interview and AI will automatically identify that there are two guys or a women and a guy and a girl are speaking, and automatically it will identify the different gender, and he will read out the article in different voices. So there are a lot of things that we can improve, not only in the way the voice itself sounds, but in the general interaction, like we talked about the background music or some things like that. So all of those will contribute to, at the end of the line, for a general experience, which is much better for the listener. And when you add, we're talking a lot about the way it will sound, but if you add in some sort of a way a voice interaction at the end of it, so you even improve it even more. We talk a lot about it within our company, we talk a lot about the consumption of content for students. Because I think when I was a student, and if I had an option to listen to an article, which is, 40 pages long on my way to the university and back, I would definitely prefer that than reading it out. And if I can add a learning phase to it, like, asking question on the text and communicating it with voice, and then giving myself a grade, and everything will be like, back and forth with the computer. That at the end of a chapter, he will ask me a few questions. If I got it right, he will say, perfect, let's move on. If not, then he will ask me some other questions. Make sure that I understand the general notion of thing, and then only continue to the next one. So I think we talk a lot about the mechanical voice, and it's definitely a super important part of it, but it's the general experience that we need to put in mind. And there are so many things that we can add to the experience that, if we can talk about it for 30 minutes, we will find 5 different startups that we can think of in only this area.
Interesting. So that's a nice. I think what we've done so far is we've had like kind of a nice overview of where some of this stuff might be heading to, and what the kind of potential of the AI is, both to create kind of like sound design ad hoc, in real time, to kind of help with kind of interactive learning, and it sounds as though it sounds as though what you're hinting at is a future where Trinity Audio might go from publishing into more of those other use cases where you're taking text, making it more digestible, making it easier to consume, and then adding some interactivity on top of it, which is 100% seems to be the direction that there will be opportunities in. For those getting started now, for those brands today who are, either considering an audio strategy, because lots of them already have some kind of text-based strategy. They're already publishing stuff on the website. They've probably got some kind of video-based strategy, because they're probably posting a lot of video on social, possibly on the website as well. And for many, audio seems to be like, you mentioned the Trinity in the beginning of the user, the publisher, and the advertiser. I think there's another Trinity when it comes to content production, which is video, written, and audio. And I think the first two have been I think a lot of brands are quite far ahead with the first two, not quite as far ahead with the last one with audio. So what are some of the challenges that you see or companies facing, and how and if kind of Trinity Audio are helping them overcome that? But first of all, what are some of the challenges that you find that your clients are facing when it comes to their audio strategy?
So I think I think like in any kind of revolution, you need to, as we call it, the officers of change. And then when the movement starts, then more and more people are joining. We see it from our end when we talked to publishers 2 years ago and what's going on right now. And when we're talking to brands 2 years ago and what we're talking to them right now. And we see that there's a change in thought. It's not like it's not everywhere. It's still not it's not everybody's thinking about it. It's still the beginning, but it's definitely much better than a year or 2 years ago. So this is I must say, this is first thing. I think that basically the challenge is that it is new, and something that is new is a change, and change is something that people doesn't like, but everybody will do it. I think it's the same. We saw it. I talked a little bit about the smartphone revolution 10, 15 years ago. Mobile application came to life. At the beginning, nobody understood what they're going to do with that. Then some of the people started. Then everybody did it, even if they needed it or not. And and only I don't know, like 5 or 6 years ago, some of the people understand we need it, some of them don't. So I think we are in the beginning of the first. We are, as my COO say, we are still warming up on the lines. The match didn't start yet. So I think that in regard to audio strategy, and I will say something that is obvious from where I'm coming from. I think that a TTS solution, whether it's ours or anyone else, everybody should audify their content. You should have an audio version of your text available on every website, and I have no doubt that 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, everybody will have it. Brands, publisher, content creator. There's no reason why not to. Okay, you just open more hours throughout the day for your user to consume your content or to have some sort of engagement. So for me, it's obvious. This is what will happen. So this is my first recommendation: use. And there are great solutions in the market. If they want to use us, I'll be more than glad. And if they want to develop one for themselves, they can also do that. But this is I'm still in the stage that everybody that will use some sort of a solution is a hand in the revolution, and so I'm all up with that. So this is the first thing. In regarding to the next stage, and I think if I'm more referring to brands, and when I'm talking about brands, I'm not talking like, I don't know, P&G or Chase Bank or something like that. Also, a media company is a brand. And I think the next stage in regarding to audio and voice strategy is creating your own voice. And again, if we're talking about my end, so don't use a generic text-to-speech solution, create your own. Take a talent, take a presenter, take an influencer, put him in a studio, record him. It's expensive, but the leading brands should do it. They should have done it a year ago. And we discussed it. I think, the best example is that George Clooney, Nespresso, get it done. Okay, just put George Clooney in a studio for, I don't know, 2 weeks. And from then on, any kind of interaction that an Espresso user will have with George Clooney voice, and I will open my Alexa skill of Nespresso, and he will say in the voice of George Clooney, which I won't imitate even, but he'll say, how are you, Ron? What do you want to drink? And I will order my, I don't know, Roma Espresso, and it will go back to me, and there will be a call, an AI call from George Clooney saying that I hope the delivery was right, and if you want to order anything else, I'm here for you. And I'll be super happy because I talked to George Clooney. So this is definitely the movement, and it will be in the next year or so. And I think that the price for creating a custom synthetic voice will definitely will be lower because it's still expensive right now. Okay, it's super expensive right now, but it will become more and more reasonable. Okay, and I think everybody will have it. And I think it's a great thing because it's a great thing to have your own unique a signature. I think it's super important for media companies and publishers that are definitely struggling and have a way for them to create a better bonding with their readers or listeners. I should say, I always say readers. But this is definitely what I think in regarding to voice and audio strategy. Beside that, if you are a brand and you don't have a podcast, you are 5 years back. If you have a message that your users or your clients or your customer want to consume, do a podcast and do it quickly. Like you have a blog, you should do it. And by the way, on your blog, use a text-to-speech solution.
Nice. So it sounds then that so some of the challenges that people are facing is because it's fairly new, and also there is so much there could be, it could be quite overwhelming for someone who's not in the sort of field. Like for someone who's not anywhere close to it, like how on earth do I even start voice enabling my website? You know, it's like for us it sounds like a natural question that you would be able to find the answer to fairly simply, but especially with companies like Trinity Audio. But for some people it's quite hard, so I can understand how that would be a challenge. And definitely the customized voices, I think, is 100% the way that it's kind of going. On that, have you heard the BBC voice?
Yes, Bibs.
Have you heard that? Have you heard that, Justin? I'm assuming you have.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's I want to see if I can play it. I don't think it's gonna work. I'm gonna try it. Give me a sec. Let me see if this actually works. Because I'm not sure whether I've got the right mic hooked up, but for those that haven't heard it, it is so, and it cost them a lot of money, as you mentioned, Ron. It's not cheap, and it did cost them a lot of money, but it sounds really good. So let me just see if you can hear this. Doesn't look like it. You hearing nothing?
No, not coming through.
What about now?
But it's a great one. It's definitely a great one.
Can you hear it now? Hold on. That?
No.
Ah, shame. Well, for me, it was good. That sounded really good. Yeah, but no, I can totally get that. Wendy has asked. So I think she agrees with the sound design and the synthetic voices. She said 100%. Before that, she asked a question, which is that audio for brands is not new. In fact, it's very old. I think it was called radio. So really, what really, it's what's new is old, and it's just the distribution is different. Is it that the distribution is different, or is it also that because for me it feels as though the creation is different as well? Is it not?
Look, I think yes, definitely. First of all, we are everything is being moved to the cloud and we're doing it by AI and machine, and this is a major change. And there is an interaction. It's not like radio is one way medium. We are listening, and this is it. We don't have any way to engage. And now, and definitely in the coming future, we will start engaging. We'll use our voice to answer back. So this is definitely a major thing about it. I do understand that it's kind of a renaissance of the radio nowadays, a renaissance of the audio, and no doubt about it, which is a great thing. By the way, I'm an audiophile and I love the radio, and so for me it's great. But I think it's a larger scale than just changing a little bit the way we are interacting with radio for the past, I don't know, 80 or 100 years.
Yeah, I think what back to what you said earlier, Ron, in terms of this can be interactive, right? I would definitely agree with you, Wendy, if we were talking about podcasts, right? Podcasts are bite-sized radio, right? That's essentially what it is. But when we get to this automatically created audio from text and perhaps interactive as well, sure, it's a bit of a renaissance, like you were saying, Ron, but additionally it's sort of like saying, well, Tinder is just dating that's existed forever on a different medium, right? The medium is really what's changing this here, and technology is opening up a lot of doors, it sounds like.
I agree.
That was a really good example. That's a good analogy. Yeah. So the other thing you mentioned, advertisers. So you've got publishers that can create content that can then be kind of audio enabled. You've got users who can listen to their to the content. You've got advertisers in the middle. So on the user side, I know there's an accessibility benefit, which maybe we'll kind of come on to, because that's actually legislation in the UK now, is that your website needs to be accessible, and I think there's huge opportunity for that. But on the advertiser side, we'll come back to that in a moment. On the advertiser side, how does advertising work with Trinity Audio? Because I know you've got some support for advertisers in there as well. So how does all that kind of stuff work?
So basically, within the audio stream that we when a listener is clicking on our player and listening to an article, within at the beginning or in the middle of listening, we will place an ad. So think again like a radio experience. You will listen to the article, and then this content will continue after this ad. You will have a 15-second or 30-second ad, and then you continue back to the content that you've been consuming. But on top of that, and I think this is the most this is our I would say our message to the advertisers, things like that. We are bringing all the relevant data, the relevant metrics that they are used to get from video campaign and display campaign, the same in the way we stream audio, because our solution, and I'll get a little bit technical, it's a JavaScript embedded on the page, so we can transfer all the relevant parameters to the advertiser, so we know any kind of contextual, any user data, at least for now, any user data that is relevant, any contextual data, any the basic data that an advertiser is used of getting in the digital landscape, which in many cases in other places, like for example in podcasting, the advertiser doesn't get a lot of knowledge. Was there a completion of my ad? How many users listened to it? How many times? When was it throughout the day? Things like that. Those are the kind of statistics that in most cases advertisers don't have when they publish on podcasts. It still, still works with the same way like radio advertising. This is the general audience. This is the amount of people that will, and we'll say, okay, so I'll publish in this specific podcast because it's relevant or not, and I don't really know how to measure in real time. There's a good chance that you will have an ad, and the podcaster will shout out something and give the URL, and there will be tons of demand, and everybody will come with super successful campaign. But I'm coming from video advertising, and I know that advertisers want to have the dashboard that they can play with and look at the metrics and parameter in different ways, and what was the CTR and what was the completion, and and all of that, and throughout the day, and with relevant content or not, and all of those slice and dice reports that they like to have.
Interesting. So yeah, so the solution for publishers, solution for advertisers, the user gets the audio from the website, and I touched on that earlier on around accessibility, and I don't know what it's like. Is there an accessibility directive, Dustin, in Paris? Is it an EU? Was it EU-wide directive, wasn't it?
I don't know. I don't follow it too closely, but I do know in the U.S. there is the American with Disabilities Act, which does necessitate a lot of accessibility and a lot of affordance to people who have those disabilities. It seems to be fallen on the wayside quite a bit on the web, more than it is in the physical world, but there should be those allowances, and even in the digital world.
So in the UK, and I don't know if this is just the UK government that did it, but I've done a lot of work in government on web design, content design, service design, all that kind of stuff. And there was a directive that came out a couple of years back, which said that every government organization has to have their website, I think it's AA certified, by either September this year or September last year. I can't remember which year. But what happened was there was a whole load of suppliers that recognized that and started building tools that would do things like, yes, it would read your text, but it was really clunky, like horrible speech, text to speech. But the other tools in there as well, like magnifying and contrast and all that kind of stuff. So I'm wondering then, Ron, there seems to be an accessibility benefit to this. If it's not an organization that wants to, sort their audio strategy out and start producing and distributing more audio content, there is also an angle there for publishers who want to make their websites more accessible. Are you seeing that demand, or are you seeing it mostly coming from people that want to pursue an audio strategy?
So that's a great question, and I actually can talk about accessibility for a full hour, but I will say that, and first of all, I will say that our solution doesn't give any kind of content creator or website something the stamp to being accessible. To be accessible, whether it's the US or the EU or even in Israel, you have a lot of things and a lot of software that need to be developed and a lot of adjustment that you need to do, and it's a project. And if somebody wants to be accessible, fully accessible, he need to take it seriously, and he should take it seriously. This is this is the first thing I would say. But what I can say, that definitely our solution helps in becoming more accessible, or have your content more accessible to people. Once we will add the voice layering, of course, it will even help blind. Now visually impaired, if they see our player, they can press play and they can listen to it, and which definitely helps them. When we'll add the voice layer, as I said, it can also help blind population. But again, don't give you the stamp to being accessible. And by the way, in the US right now, it's starting to become a law form sport to sue website for lack of accessibility. And I'm not sure that they are doing it from the right cause. Okay. So, but it's still, you need to defend yourself, and definitely, any kind of step, because it's a regulation. I don't know sure how it's in the EU or the UK. It's a regulation in the US. So there are many things that you can do with not being full accessible that would be helpful in some sort of a way. Maybe not make you fully bulletproof from lawsuit, but definitely help you in making a reasonable effort in that direction. And there are many solutions throughout the market. And we can also help in a niche. Okay, it's important. Again, I'm saying we are not making any website or any content creator and a stamp for accessibility. But I want to say another thing, in which this is super important, okay? Because when we talk about disabled people, when we talk about accessibility, we usually talk about blind, visually impaired. There's a larger group between us worldwide, globally, and there's people with low reading skills and illiterate people, which are consuming content. They use smartphone, they go to YouTube to consume the news, and having a tool that read out the content definitely helps in engaging with those population, and helping them become a more contribute part to their community, because they are more involved. They understand what's going on. They consume content, and then they understand. And it can be relevant for government, and it can be relevant for any kind of content, whether it's news or finance or whatnot. And I'll give you some numbers that will amaze you. For example, in India, we are heavily invested in India. We are actually in the coming month will be releasing large publication within India, because we're a great believer in this market. But we are talking about almost 30% of the population. We are talking about 380 million people. This is larger than the US population itself, which are illiterate. Wow. We are talking about, I want to tell you something about the US, and this is something that I read in the Washington Post, and I was amazed. 50% of the population has less than an 8th grade reading skill level. Less than 8th grade reading skill level. This is 50% of the US population. This is the leader of the free world. So we are talking about the large, and I can talk about what it does to society, and what it does to economy, and what it does to health resources, and many other things. But when when the content is being modified, you are adding a super important layer to help people engage with your content. And there are many people that need it. Okay, it's not like me driving my car. It would be nice if I can listen to the list. Last article is definitely amazing, and why not? This is for me. This is why I started it. But I will finish the part of accessibility about it. I went to South Africa to start open the market. I'm a great believer in Africa as well. And one of the meetings that we had there, it was with the Minister of Communication. It wasn't the minister itself, but somebody from his office. And when we talked about the solution, he told me, look, you have something much bigger. You need to understand, we have a lot of people that either illiterate or low reading skills, and you're helping us in basically distribute our content to a population that can't consume it. And they understand the language, but they can't read it, or it just takes them forever, so they won't. And there are a lot of messages that we need to deliver them. So I think this is also, we have a saying in the company, we say we like to do good business, but we prefer to do business to do good. And we truly hope, and we're still a small startup, but we truly hope that, we will get there, and we'll bring the message that, we first all modify the internet, and all the content will be available. And then my next dream, and we talk about a little bit about the AI and things like that. So we will mark the text while we are reading out the text to a user. And we read some researchers that talked about how it can help improving reading skills for people. When you listen to an audio file and read the text in front of you, and the audio is synchronized with the text, it can actually help you read. So if I don't know, hopefully we are now in the middle of a round, so hopefully it will be a successful round, and we will get to it, and we'll have great investors. So this is definitely something that I want to do, and definitely correspond with especially what's going on in the high tech scene in general. More and more do good to our small globe in wherever you can.
And Ron, which languages and regions are you supporting right now?
So of course, English, Spanish, definitely Portuguese. We are starting a big cooperation now in LATAM. After the US, India is our biggest market. So we have English and Hindi English, English in a Hindi accent. We also support the Hindi language, French, German, Spanish, if I didn't mention it already, Dutch, Italian, all of those languages and many more. We just started our first website in Russia, just launched a month ago, which is actually a large Israeli media group that have a large website in Russia. So we are quite spread. Our Mandarin is not that good right now, but it's improving.
Are there any languages that are harder or easier? Say, we know that the closer it is to English, it's generally a bit easier. But let's say glutative languages or symbol-based or tonal languages, do any of those bring unique challenges that make it harder, or maybe even make it a little bit easier?
So Hebrew is one of the worst. I can tell you that.
Oh, is that because it has no vowels, right?
Yeah, because everything, there are special marks that near letters to understand how to pronounce it correctly. Mm-hmm. And because of that, many of the text is without those marks, because usually when you're reading enough, when you're at junior school, you need those marks to understand what you need to read. But then later on, you don't need those marks anymore. So most of the text is without it. And then, we are doing some testing with it in different engines. It sounds like text-to-speech 20 years ago. This is the way it sounds, which is great if you want to have a laugh, but it's not something that you can consider for a long time.
That's good. Richard has mentioned that in the US, accessibility is becoming even more important in all digital channels. In fact, the mantra is accessibility drives better usability, which is true. If you design, if you design for things to be accessible, then generally it does have a decent impact. And he's commented as well, for better or for worse, the US lawsuits against the big players drive some of the kind of need to do it, really, which again, is true. That's the whole thing that kicked off the data legislation stuff. The GDPR stuff was that they were targeting big companies, and it's like, well, everyone gets afraid because if you're targeting the big companies, then we're kind of next. And he agrees that accessibility is going beyond sight and hearing. He designs for the senior community, so designing for cognitive disabilities is becoming very important. So yeah, there's obviously another kind of market there, or group of people who find this kind of stuff useful. Is not just the people who are illiterate or the people who are English or whatever language as a second language and things like that, but obviously the elderly as well. So I think that I know we're on time now, but I think that what I would envisage, and you mentioned that you're going through the kind of process of raising funds, and good luck with that, and I hope that kind of goes well. And I think that hearing you speak at the end there about your trip to South Africa, about hearing about how what you've got is something that's actually bigger than Audify in the web. It's actually empowering people that need to consume information, in some cases vital information. You think about the coronavirus and the amount of information that people needed to consume and get at the right time from the right trusted authority that have been probably unable to get it. And it becomes a lot more than voice enabling the internet. It becomes more about opening up information and education and learning and opportunity to people who need it most. I think that is more powerful than anything else.
So true. It's 100% correct. I don't have anything to add to that.
Cool. That's not often. It's not often I leave people speechless. People usually have more. People usually have more questions for me. Leslie has said, "Writing changed because of the internet. I wonder if speaking will eventually change due to voice interfaces." That's interesting. We had that, didn't we, Dustin, with Mark Webster? Do you remember when he was saying that we might kind of eventually learn to just talk to our assistants in shorthand, like Alexa Music or something like that?
I don't recall that, but it seems plausible. It's interesting what Leslie was mentioning there, because I've been listening to an audio course series from John McWhorter. If you haven't heard him, he's amazing. He does he's a linguistics professor at Columbia. He does a lot of popular language courses for the Great Courses series on Audible, if you know that. And he talks about, in the latest one I listened, where language has changed because of writing, actually. Language has changed, or language doesn't change because of writing. Where in the past, the language changed really quickly because Kane, Ron, like we speak and maybe we say gonna, for example, instead of going to, and that's what it becomes. But with writing, things calcify a little bit. And so what Leslie mentions here, maybe that changes things just a little bit, where the spoken layer comes back into it a little bit more.
Interesting. Cool. Well, Ron, this has been an absolute pleasure. I think we've gone down avenues that I wasn't expecting to go down. I think it's been really, really useful, really helpful, eye-opening, and in part inspiring. So thank you very much for joining us. And where can people either try Trinity Audio, follow you online, follow your journey, or try the tool? Where can people go?
So they can definitely come to our website, which is trinityaudio.ai, and check out our. There's also a demo page over there and a lot of information. And they can go to my LinkedIn or Twitter. It's Ron Jaworski, Jawrski, and reach out. By the way, if they have any kind of idea or thoughts or something they want to share, it's such an exciting time to be in it. There is actually. It's actually a funny story. I was driving my car, part of the audio revolution. So I was driving my car with my two kids. It was an hour drive, and we went back to the grandmother, my mother, and they said my child said to me that okay, everybody will choose something to hear in their turn, and so my little girl chose a singer that she likes, and then the second one chose something that she likes. And then it came my turn, and it just looked like a 2-hour podcast that I wanted to listen to. And but I just chose only one. So I think this is the so definitely, if somebody want to reach out and it's like something that he wants to share on audio, and if it's definitely a humor story, well, I'm glad to hear about that. But so this is not me, and I will just end it because I'm trying to find the best time to put it on, because I'm trying to be a unicorn. This is my aim, and this is the closest thing that I have for now. Hopefully it will change in time.
Nice. I like it. We need to get some VUX World unicorn horns, Dustin.
Yeah,
some branded. Nice one. That is class. Well, Ron, it's been an absolute pleasure. Dustin, quick one. Richard has asked whether you can share the Columbia professor info on the chat on LinkedIn afterwards.
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
Please do.
yeah. I think I might check it out myself. Actually, that sounds interesting. And yeah, everyone else, thank you for joining. I mean, it's been a really good, engaging discussion. We've had lots of comments, lots of questions. So thank you very much for joining. We're going to have next week. We'll be speaking to Paul Cutsinger from Amazon, and we're going to be running through all of the new iterations and changes and developments in the Alexa Skills Kit that have been announced a few weeks back at Alexa Live. So do tune in for that. It's going to be immense. And don't forget to check out the This Week in Voice VIP newsletter, the Voice Strategy Readiness Assessment, Trinity Audio, and tune in for next week's podcast with Paul Cutsinger from Amazon. Thank you very much, and